the island of echoes. It is night, and the sea folds against the limestone cliffs of Malta. The waves arrive like soft hands, brushing the edges of the island, then retreating as though carrying away a memory too heavy to remain. Moonlight spreads across the surface of the water, a silver road stretching endlessly into the horizon. And on this island, shaped by time and touched by myth, the stones themselves seem to breathe. They are not ordinary stones. They are older than pyramids, older than written memory. And when the wind passes through them, when footsteps cross their sacred floors, it is as though voices stir faint echoes of a people whose names have been erased, but whose presence lingers in the silence. This is Malta, an island of echoes, a place where stone does not sleep but remembers. The first whisper. It is said that long ago, before even the pharaohs carved their tombs, before Rome raised its arches, before Athens sang its hymns, there were builders here, a people who shaped the earth with bare hands and vision, cutting vast blocks of limestone, lifting them without wheel, without iron, arranging them in spirals and crescents as though they were writing a prayer into the land itself. The first whisper of their story greets us at Hypogeum, on the sister island of Gozo. Here, under the fading light of dusk, walls rise from the ground like the ribs of a giant. Some call it the Tower of Giants, for who else, they wondered, could have moved such stones? Each block weighs as much as 50 men. Yet they rest here still, balanced, silent, facing the horizon with a patience beyond centuries. The legend tells of a giantess who carried stones upon her head while nursing a child at her breast. She built the temple in a single night, her strength a gift from the hidden gods. Others whisper of priestesses, their chants spiraling through the air, calling the stars to listen, inviting the moon to bend low. But what truth hides within? The ruins do not answer, they only watch, and in their silence, they keep us dreaming. Geometry of the sacred step, inside, and the air thickens. The temple curves inward, its apses unfolding like chambers within a body. Walls bend like the curve of a womb, altars face the rising sun, spirals carve themselves into stone as though echoing breath. Nothing here is sharp, or harsh, or hurried. The design feels alive, more organic than architecture, more prayer than engineering. It is said these temples mirror the goddess, a divine mother, wide-hipped and faceless, the keeper of life and death. Fragments of her image remain, statues with rounded bodies, resting figures with closed eyes, shapes of fertility and eternity. Here, stone was not merely stacked, it was shaped to embody the sacred. Every curve an offering, every opening a gate. But to what? To the stars above, to the earth below, or to something that exists only in the silence between. Descent into shadow. Beneath the island lies a deeper mystery. Down a staircase carved in the rock, spiraling inward as though into the lungs of the earth, there rests the Hypogeum. It is not a single chamber, but an entire labyrinth of shadow. Rooms folding into rooms, corridors leading further into the unseen, altars carved directly from the stone itself. At first, it seems like a tomb, a house of the dead, where skulls once lay in careful rows, where bodies were placed in silence. But then, the air changes. The deeper one goes, the more one feels that this is not merely a resting place, it is a passageway, a threshold between this world and another. The oracle chamber waits within, a small room with curved walls, shaped so precisely that sound lingers unnaturally. A voice here is magnified, transformed, as if made into something greater than human. Imagine a chant rising in this darkness, a single tone filling the chamber, vibrating through the bones of those who listened. A prayer that became not words, but resonance. Not sound, but presence. Was this architecture a tool, a bridge between realms? Did the builders seek to speak with the unseen, to call the ancestors, to invite the gods? Or did they believe that by shaping the earth in this way, they could trap eternity itself, hold it within the stone, and never let it go? Myths woven in dust outside, the wind still circles the ruins. Legends cling to them like vines. Some say the temples were built by giants, their footprints hidden beneath the soil. Others whisper of priestesses, their hair woven with stars, their voices echoing through the ages. There are tales of sacrifice, though none can be proven. There are stories of migration, of a people who vanished suddenly, leaving behind only these temples, as though the island itself had swallowed them whole. Historians measure, scientists examine, but the silence remains. What we know is always less than what the stones refuse to tell. The island, as a dream, perhaps the truth is not meant to be uncovered. Perhaps Malta was never only a place, but a dream the earth continues to have. The stones rise and fall with light and shadow. The sea carries their whispers across centuries, and the Hypogeum breathes slowly in the dark, its silence thick, its resonance waiting. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Perhaps that is why the island still speaks, not in language, but in echo, not in answers, but in questions that soften as night approaches. It is said the stones of Malta are alive, that if you press your ear against them at dusk, you can still hear the hum of ancient prayer. Perhaps it is true. Or perhaps the echo is within us, memory stirring where we least expect it, dreams awakening before sleep has come. The sea folds again against the limestone cliffs. The stars rise higher in the velvet dark. The temples stand silent, but not empty. And the island waits, a breath held between centuries, a voice carried only by echo. We walk away with no answers, only the hush of something vast, something sacred, something that refuses to vanish. The island of echoes drifts into the night, its stones whispering softly for those who dare to listen. The chamber of eternal breath. It begins with a descent. A staircase, narrow and worn, spirals down into the earth. Each step feels like leaving the living world behind, as if stone itself has chosen to swallow us, to carry us into a place where time has no measure. Above, the streets of Malta rest in quiet. Children sleep, windows close. The sea hums softly at the edge of the island. But here, beneath the surface, a labyrinth opens, not of brick, not of mortar, but of the living limestone, carved as though by careful hands guided by silence. It is said that once, long ago, this place was not hidden, that voices filled these halls, that ceremonies were whispered into the earth. Now only the air breathes here, rising and falling, a presence that seems to inhale with us and exhale when we do not. This is the Hypogeum, the house beneath the world, the chamber of eternal breath, the first descent. As the spiral curves inward, shadows deepen. The lantern's glow stretches along the walls, revealing ochre spirals painted in trembling red. Circles within circles, markings that suggest infinity, or perhaps the endless rhythm of life folding into death, and death folding into life again. The breath feels heavier here, not a simple intake of air, but something dense, almost sacred, as though each inhale carries the weight of centuries, and each exhale releases what is not ours to keep. It is said these spirals are not decoration, but a map, a chart of what cannot be seen. Some believe they are the symbols of a journey, the soul winding deeper, past body, past memory, into the chamber of silence itself. The Oracle's Room. At the heart of the labyrinth lies the chamber they call the Oracle's Room, a space so carefully shaped, so strangely resonant, that a single voice becomes infinite. Whispers tell us that when a priest, or perhaps a seeker, spoke within these walls, their voice would expand, echoing into every crevice, vibrating through the stone, lingering in the bones of all who listened. It is not echo as we know it. It is resonance. The stone itself carries the sound, stretching it, holding it, as if eternity wished to reply. Some say it was here the living called to the dead. Others believe the chamber was tuned to the frequency of the cosmos, a place where voice and star became one. Perhaps it was never meant to summon at all, but to dissolve, to strip away words, to leave only vibration, only breath. Stand here long enough, and silence itself feels as though it is breathing with you. The watchers in the stone, deeper, still, chambers open like folded memory, alcoves carved into walls, rooms that hold shadows as though they are sacred relics. It is said that once, skulls rested here, arranged with care, lined like guardians of the threshold. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of them, their hollow eyes forever watching the chambers they once entered in flesh. Were they priests, keepers of hidden rites? Were they seekers of visions, drawn here to sleep among stone and silence? Or were they the common dead, brought down to join the great breath of the earth? We cannot know. But the stillness of the chamber suggests that whatever they sought, it was not simply rest, It was passage. It was transformation. The skulls are gone now, removed, studied, scattered into museums. Yet the presence remains. The walls remember. The silence does not forget. Breath of the earth. In these rooms, sound behaves differently. A chant does not end when the lips fall silent. A single note lingers, reverberating, as if the walls themselves wish to carry it on. It is said the Hypogeum was designed not as a dwelling, nor as a tomb, but as a great lung, an organ that inhales the voice of the living and exhales it back transformed, marked by eternity. Those who entered must have felt it, the vibration against their skin, the hum in their bones, the strange sense that breath itself was no longer theirs alone, that they were part of a greater rhythm, the eternal breath of the earth itself, the forgotten people. And yet, who were they? The ones who carved these chambers from living rock, who painted spirals in red, who shaped silence into ceremony. Their names have vanished, their language is gone. Their faces, their stories, their songs all dissolved into dust. All that remains are these chambers, and the breath that does not fade. Some say famine ended them. Others whisper of migration, of departure, of a people who chose to leave the island, carrying their gods elsewhere. There are darker tales, of sacrifice, of rituals that consumed more than they gave. But the chambers refuse to answer. They offer no history, only silence, only resonance, the eternal spiral. The deeper one descends, the more time unravels. It is no longer the present that holds us, but something older, something vast. Each step feels like entering not just a chamber, but a memory, and within that memory, the boundaries blur. Between body and breath, between life and death, between silence and sound, the ochre spirals repeat themselves, circle upon circle, as if reminding us, there is no ending, only return. Only the breath, moving outward and inward, again and again, the final silence. At the last turn, when the passage narrows into darkness, nothing remains but stillness. The air no longer carries voice. The walls no longer echo. It is as if we have reached the end of breath itself, a place where sound cannot enter, a chamber kept for silence alone. Perhaps this was the destination all along. Not vision, not revelation, not even memory, but silence. A silence so full, so alive, that it becomes indistinguishable from breath. The chamber of eternal breath does not explain itself. It does not reveal its purpose. It only waits. It only breathes. And as we turn to leave, to climb back toward the living world, the silence follows us, gentle and infinite, as though whispering. Some truths were never meant to be spoken. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. And some breaths, the breath of the earth, the breath of eternity, will never end. The stones that sing it begins with a horizon, faint and endless, where the first breath of dawn spills across the Mediterranean. The sea glimmers in shades of pearl and silver, and from the ridges of Malta, the land itself seems to rise as if remembering a dream long buried. Here, the stones stand, not in scattered ruin, not as broken walls, but as sentinels immense, immovable, and still alive with the silence of ages. They call this place Afghantija, the Tower of Giants. The name itself is a whisper of awe, born from the mouths of villagers who once looked upon these vast blocks of stone and knew they could not have been set by ordinary hands. In the cool breath of morning, before the heat of the sun awakens the limestone, the temple feels less like a ruin than a hymn, a structure built not only to touch the earth but also to speak to the sky. It is said that here, in the shadow of these walls, giants once walked. A race of beings who carried stone as though it were clay, who laid foundations not for homes, nor fortresses, but for prayer, carved into the earth itself. And whether these giants were real, or only the imagined memory of human hands struggling to explain their own work, the stones remain as proof of something greater than reason. Step closer, and the silence thickens. The air hushes. Even the birds seem to drift higher, circling without sound. Before you stretches a wall, each block taller than a man, each heavier than 100 men could lift together. There is no wheel to explain it, no iron, no beast of burden, only the endless question, waiting like a riddle in the wind. How? And more softly still, why? The passage curves, not as a fortress, but as a body. Here an apse, rounded as though echoing the hollow of a womb. There, an altar stone, raised not as a throne, but as an offering, its edges worn by centuries of unseen hands. The shape is not defensive, it is not the design of war. Instead, the temple breathes of life. Each curve, each chamber, whispers of creation, of beginnings, of a goddess whose name is no longer spoken aloud. Among the stones, once buried in the soil, figures were found, wide-hipped, heavy-bodied, their faces erased by time, or perhaps never carved at all. They stand faceless in museums now, but their presence lingers here, in the spaces between stones. Were they the mothers of life, or were they guardians of mystery, vessels of a faith we can no longer recall? Their silence is profound, yet it is not empty. It is full of a memory that cannot be translated, full of a language of stone and curve and shadow. It is said the builders shaped not only for the earth, but for the stars. At solstice and equinox, the light of the sun enters these chambers at precise moments, striking altars with rays as though the heavens themselves were kneeling in the temple. Was it a calendar, a sacred alignment, or was it an act of devotion to weave stone and starlight into one eternal fabric, so that the gods above would never be forgotten by those below? As the day unfolds, the stones drink the Sunday, their pale surfaces warm, their shadows deepen. Visitors drift in and out, their voices hushed, as though instinctively sensing that this place does not welcome noise. Yet the real mystery awakens not under the sun, but under the cloak of night. When darkness falls and the winds rise, the stones begin to speak, not in words, not in language, but in sound. The wind curls around the edges, flows through the openings, vibrates against the hollows. A low murmur, then a sigh, then tones that hover on the edge of music. Some dismiss it as accident, the mere result of stone and breeze. Yet others listen longer, and they hear something more, as if the temple were not ruined, but alive, still playing the song its builders meant it to carry forever. It is here that we must pause, for the song is not loud. It is subtle, hidden, woven into silence like a thread of silver. To hear it requires stillness, a kind of listening that belongs more to the heart than to the ear. Close your eyes. The stone hums. It is not an echo of the present, but a vibration from the past, resonating across centuries. Perhaps this was the intention. Perhaps those who placed these stones knew that even when their faces were forgotten, their voices would remain. Some scholars believe that ritual chants once filled these chambers, and that the curved walls magnified them until a single voice became many, until prayer became thunder, until the people felt the earth itself answer. Others wonder if these tones were never meant for human ears at all, but for the unseen, for the gods, for the spirits, for the vast silence that lingers between the stars. What is certain is that the stones are not silent. They have never been silent. Their language is slower than ours, their sentences carved in centuries instead of syllables. But if you sit among them long enough, if you let the darkness settle around you like a cloak, you begin to feel it, the hymn rising, the song of stone and wind, the quiet heartbeat of a temple still alive. It is said that giants built this place. It is said that a goddess once walked here. It is said that prayers shaped the very walls. Perhaps all are true, perhaps none are true. What remains is this: a voice without words, carried through stone, lingering through ages, waiting for ears patient enough to hear. And so we end not with an answer, but with a silence that hums, a silence that breathes. The stones stand, and they sing, and whether their song was meant for us, or for the heavens, or for the earth itself, we cannot know. Perhaps it was never meant to be solved. Perhaps some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Here, on the high ridges of Malta, where the sea stretches to infinity and the stars lean close, the stones continue their song. They have sung for thousands of years, and they will sing for thousands more. If you close your eyes now, you may still hear it, the hymn of giants, the whisper of a forgotten goddess, the eternal breath of stone. And in that sound, soft and unbroken, the night draws you deeper into its arms, the moonlit goddess. It begins with a shadow cradled in stone, a figurine, no larger than the palm of a hand, yet as weighty as a forgotten prayer. She lies on her side, her body curved, her form rounded, her eyes closed as though lost in an eternal dream. They call her the Sleeping Lady, but names are only fragments, human attempts to hold what cannot be held. She is more than a name, more than clay or earth. She is a breath that lingers in silence, a secret shaped by hands that vanished thousands of years ago. She was found in the deep chambers of the Hypogeum of Al-Saflieni, the labyrinth beneath the streets of Malta. Down there, in the dark, her presence feels inevitable, as though she had always been waiting, her slumber stretching across ages. No one knows who carved her, or for what ritual she was made. But when eyes fall upon her now, something stirs, not explanation, but recognition, as though we are gazing at a memory of ourselves. It is said she is the goddess of life's renewal. Some believe she was placed in the Hypogeum to guard the resting dead, her dream entwined with theirs, her silence sheltering their passage into another world. Others whisper that she is not a mourner, but a guide, her sleep a bridge between waking and eternity, her form a map of cycles that never end, fertility, death, return. Again and again, like the breath, the Hypogeum itself seems carved in her image. Its chambers curl like the spirals painted in ochre on the walls, spirals that mirror the rhythm of breath, the turning of seasons, the coils of time. In alcoves shaped like wombs, skulls once rested, waiting in stillness, as though the chamber itself was not a tomb but a cradle for what dies, perhaps, must always be reborn. The figurine, resting, dreaming, completes the circle. Step deeper into the labyrinth, and her presence expands. The silence thickens. The air presses close, as if the earth itself inhales with you. In the oracle room, where sound magnifies into infinite echoes, one can almost hear her breath, not human, not divine, but something in between. The figurine is small, yet the chamber seems to radiate her essence, as if the entire structure were built as a temple of her sleep. And above, beyond the labyrinth, the moon waits. Round, luminous, eternal. Its glow mirrors her curves, her posture, her unbroken rest. When its light falls across the island, it paints her body in silver, as though reminding us that she was never meant to remain in darkness alone. Some believe the builders of Malta's temples aligned their stones to the cycles of the moon, weaving her presence into the sky itself. The moon, after all, is the goddess of both light and shadow, of waning and waxing, of death and return. In her, the cycles are eternal, just as they are in the Sleeping Lady. Statues of wide-hipped figures, faceless and eternal, are scattered across Malta's ancient sites. They share her form, her heaviness, her stillness. They were never carved to resemble individuals. They are not portraits of people, but embodiments of rhythm. The curve of belly, the fullness of thigh, the weight of body all speak of life, of abundance, of a sacredness bound to earth and to cycles too vast for names. The Sleeping Lady is the most intimate of these. She is not standing in command. She is not faceless and distant. She is lying down, resting. She dreams for all. It is said that sleep itself was sacred to the ancients, for in sleep the soul wanders where the body cannot go. Perhaps she is not only the goddess of fertility, but also of dream, a patron of those who drifted into other worlds, their eyes closed, their minds journeying into mysteries beyond the living. To sleep was to enter the unknown. To dream was to touch what could not be seen by daylight. In this way, the Sleeping Lady holds both the tenderness of life and the solemnity of death. She rests in both realms at once. When one gazes at her, a strange stillness arises. Her face is featureless, yet it does not feel empty. It feels deliberate, as if the absence of features allows her to belong to everyone, to no one, to all time. She does not stare, she does not speak. She dreams, and her dream becomes the silence in which we listen. The Hypogeum itself hums with this silence. The spirals, the alcoves, the shadows, all feel like echoes of her repose. To wander there is to walk inside her dream. The walls breathe, the chambers turn like the folds of sleep. Every curve, every hollow, recalls the body at rest, the cycle of breath, the eternal lull of life returning to itself. Outside, the moon climbs. Its silver light brushes the island, the temples, the sea. Its roundness mirrors her form, her endless cycle, her dream that folds the living and the dead together. In her and in the moon, there is no ending, only return. The ancients knew this. They carved it into stone, they placed it in figurines, they buried it in chambers where the living bowed their heads. Perhaps she was never meant to be explained. Perhaps her silence is her gift, a reminder that not all that is sacred requires answer. Some truths are not for solving, they are for resting with, breathing with, dreaming with. The sleeping lady rests still, her body curved, her eyes closed, her silence unbroken. Thousands of years have passed, yet her dream continues. And, as you listen now, her breath may echo in your own, her stillness folding into your stillness. She does not call for awakening, she does not call for worship. She simply is eternal, moonlit, caught between waking and dream. And so we leave her, not with explanation, but with reverence. The figurine rests, the chambers breathe. The moon drifts overhead. Perhaps she was never meant to be found. Perhaps her dream was always meant to continue, in silence, in shadow, in the quiet rhythm of breath. Listen closely. You may hear her still, a goddess of the moon, a goddess of cycles, a goddess who whispers softly that what is sacred need not be solved, only remembered. The gate of forgotten voices. There is a place where silence does not end, where the very air seems to carry memory, and sound lingers as if unwilling to fade. It is found beneath the ground, in a labyrinth of stone cut by hands long vanished. This place is called the Hypogeum, and within its shadowed depths lies a chamber unlike any other, a room where a single human voice becomes something more than mortal. It begins with a descent. The steps spiral downward, carved not for haste, but for reverence. Each turn of the stair feels like a gentle unthreading from the world above the streets, the sunlight, the familiar breath of air. Below, there is only dimness, the cool dampness of stone, and a silence so profound it feels alive. You inhale, and the chamber seems to inhale with you. You exhale, and the sound does not vanish, it hovers, clings, as though waiting. This is the oracle chamber, a space not large, yet infinite in the way it bends sound, in the way it bends the spirit. The walls curve inwards, shaped as if by design, not only to shelter, but to listen. Archaeologists say that here, the resonance of the human voice is amplified. A single low chant lingers far longer than it should, echoing until it feels less like an echo and more like the awakening of the earth itself. The science of acoustics can measure it, but the mystery remains untouched. It is said that priests once stood here, their chants drawn deep from the chest, their voices low and resonant. The sound, entering the stone, would not fade. It would expand, it would circle, repeat, layer upon itself, until it seemed as though a chorus of unseen presences had joined them. Whispers tell us that these were not chants alone, but messages, thresholds where the human voice crossed into something divine. Some believe this chamber was no ordinary hall. They call it a gate, a threshold, a passage through which voices became messengers, carrying words across the veil to the spirits of the dead, or perhaps to gods who lingered in the hollow spaces of the earth. Imagine standing there. A single hum leaves your throat. It rises, fills the chamber, lingers, vibrates. Soon it no longer belongs to you. It is everywhere, surrounding you, inside you, beneath your feet. The walls sing with it. The air thrums with it. Your bones tremble with it. You are no longer speaker and listener. You are the instrument, played by something older than memory. In forgotten corners of Malta, there are stories of voices that reached farther than the living should. Some say the chamber allowed speech with the ancestors, their wisdom returned on the currents of sound. Others whisper that the voices stirred something beneath the earth, an ancient presence, neither god nor ghost, but something vast, waiting. Archaeologists record only the acoustics, the precise way sound is held and stretched by the stone. Yet the silence that follows is harder to measure, for when the voice finally fades, it does not leave emptiness. It leaves weight, a profound stillness, as if someone or something has been listening. The chambers that surround it deepen the sense of passage, alcoves carved with patient hands, walls painted in spirals of ochre, curling like breath, like eternity folding in upon itself. To walk them is to feel drawn inward, not into a place, but into a state, a descent into the marrow of memory. Perhaps those who built it understood sound not only as music, but as spirit. A voice could be a bridge, a chant could be a ladder, a resonance could carry the soul into regions where the body could not go. This is why some call it the Gate of Forgotten Voices, for what was spoken here is gone, yet the chamber remembers. It holds echoes too faint for the ear, vibrations that still hum in the bones of the stone. Close your eyes and imagine. The chamber dark, lit only by the faint flame of oil lamps. A figure stands, cloaked, breathing deeply. His voice begins low, vibrating the air. It grows, not louder, but fuller, until the room itself seems to breathe the chant back to him. Shadows shift, the walls curve closer, the air is heavy with presence. Around him, others kneel in silence, listening, their eyes half closed, their breath slow, as though waiting for the veil to part. Did they hear the gods? Did they hear the dead? Or was it the chamber itself, speaking back? We cannot know. What remains is the mystery, the silence, the lingering impression that what was summoned there has never fully gone. Even now, if you whisper within its walls, the sound lingers too long, as if reluctant to return to silence. And when silence does return, it is never empty. It is dense, weighted, alive. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Perhaps the oracle chamber was built for this alone, not to answer questions, but to remind us that some mysteries cannot be solved. They must be felt. They must be breathed. The Gate of Forgotten Voices waits still, beneath the streets, beneath the footsteps of the living. It waits in shadow, in silence, in stone. The chamber does not forget. It sings when summoned, it listens when empty, and perhaps it will never fall completely silent, for the voices remain not in words, not in names, but in the breath of stone, where memory fades and echoes last forever. The labyrinth beneath the sea. It is said that in forgotten corners of the earth, silence holds more truth than words. And in the heart of the Mediterranean, on the small sunlit islands of Malta, silence runs deep, not only above the ground, but far beneath it, where the soil and stone are hollowed with mysteries. We begin not with temples or ruins, but with the sea itself. On certain nights, fishermen resting along the jagged cliffs whisper of strange sounds, carried on the wind. They tell of hollows in the stone, places where the rock sighs as though breathing. A mournful sound, half wind and half voice, drifts from unseen caverns. To some, these are simply tricks of air and tide, but to others, older, quieter souls, they are reminders that beneath the islands runs a labyrinth, carved in ages long before memory, a network of tunnels whose end no one has ever seen. Beneath the soil, beneath the temples, beneath even the bones of the dead, there are roads that vanish into the dark. The invitation of the hollow earth, the Hypogeum of Falsaflieni, Malta's underground temple, is the doorway we know. Its spiral walls curve gently inward, like breath captured in stone. Its chambers stretch downward, 3 levels deep, carved with hands that shaped not only passageways but meaning. And yet, whispers tell us the Hypogeum is only the fragment we are allowed to see, a single threshold to something greater. It is said that the tunnels stretch far beyond its walls, that hidden doors lead from the Hypogeum into a network of corridors that snake under the island, some reaching all the way to the sea. There are tales of children, long ago, who wandered too far and did not return, of explorers who followed the sound of dripping water, deeper and deeper, until their lanterns vanished and their voices were lost to silence. The island has always kept them. To walk into such places is not to walk into history, but into divinant, the mouth of myth itself. The deepening mystery. Archaeologists map the Hypogeum, tracing its carved chambers like lines on an ancient scroll. They measure the spirals, the alcoves, the altars, but beyond the measured light lies something uncharted. Local lore insists the labyrinth extends outward, vast as a hidden ocean. Some believe these tunnels were escape routes, woven beneath the temples so that priests could vanish unseen. Others claim they were ceremonial roads not for the living, but for spirits, roads where voices could travel, where breath became echo, and echo became prayer. There are stories of tunnels that lead nowhere, twisting endlessly until walls close like jaws. And stories, too, of tunnels that lead everywhere, slipping out beneath cliffs, where the dark mouth of stone meets the sea. In those places, it is said, water seeps through the cracks and gathers in hidden pools. Drops of salt water shine like stars scattered on the floor, flickering when lanterns move. A mirror to the heavens, buried underground. The deeper we imagine these passages, the more the stone itself begins to blur. Was this truly the hand of man? Or was it the island itself, an ancient body hollowing its own bones, carving its own lungs, as though longing to breathe through tunnels and chambers? Perhaps both, perhaps neither. The truth is veiled, as though meant to be carried only in silence. The drift into the unknown whispers tell us of those who dared too far. A century ago, a group of researchers is said to have descended into a lower passage, lanterns flickering against damp walls. Hours passed. The echoes of their voices grew faint, until nothing returned but silence. When others went searching, the tunnels themselves seemed to close. No sound, no step, no breath was found, only stone, curving inward. Some believe they were swallowed, not by collapse, but by the labyrinth itself, as though the earth chose to fold around them, keeping its secrets intact. In this way, the labyrinth is not merely stone, it is guardian. It protects not by walls, but by confusion, by silence, by endless spirals. A place where time unravels, where one cannot tell whether the passage ahead leads back to where you began or into the heart of something you cannot name. The language of water and stone. It is here, deep within, that water becomes the only voice. Dripping through fissures, gathering in pools, it sings in slow rhythm, marking time older than memory. Each drop seems to echo, as though the chamber itself were alive, amplifying sound beyond what should be possible. To walk here, even in imagination, is to walk between realms. Stone underfoot feels human, carved, deliberate, yet the air feels oceanic, salted and damp, as though one were standing in the lungs of the sea itself. The labyrinth breathes, and in that breath lies its mystery. Was it a road for the living, or a road for the dead? Was it built to hide, or to guide? No one answers. The labyrinth does not explain, it only holds. The return to the surface, to imagine, now that you leave your lantern behind. The stone walls fall away into darkness, yet even without sight, you feel the island holding you, its silence wrapping around you like a cloak. You follow the faint hum of air until a dim light appears, not flame but reflection, the shimmer of moonlight caught in water far above. When you surface, the night sky stretches vast over the sea. The cliffs stand silent, and yet, beneath your feet, you know the tunnels still wait, circling, spiraling, breathing. Perhaps the labyrinth is not meant to be mapped. Perhaps its true form lies not in stone corridors at all, but in the silence it leaves behind. The fade into silence. It is said that the labyrinth beneath Malta does not end. It circles back upon itself, endless as the tides. Each turn leads not to conclusion, but to reflection, as though the island has carved into itself a memory of all that was, and all that is yet to come. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen. Some maps are drawn not in ink, but in silence. Perhaps the true labyrinth is not beneath the island, but within the human heart, spirals of memory, tunnels of forgetting, corridors where voices echo long after they are gone. And so the story closes, not with certainty, but with wonder. The labyrinth waits, beneath the soil, beneath the sea, beneath the silence, still breathing, still circling, still unfound. Perhaps it was never meant to be found. The temple aligned with stars. It is said that in forgotten ages, when stone and sky spoke more clearly than words, people built not only for the earth, but for the heavens. Upon the rocky cliffs of Malta, surrounded by the endless ocean, one such place still stands, a temple whose very stones breathe with the rhythm of the cosmos. Menagdra, they call it. Ancient, sacred, carved with hands that measured not only weight and shadow, but the path of the sun across eternity. We begin at dawn. The first light of morning gathers slowly on the horizon, like breath before speech. The sea shivers with silver, the air holds its hush, and then just as the edge of the sun crests, the light pierces through the temple's doorway. It does not wander, it does not miss. It falls with perfect precision, striking the stone altar in a single golden line, a beam of breath, alive, threading earth and sky together. This is no accident, this is intention. A design older than memory. The invitation of the light. Imagine standing within those stones. The air is cool, the floor uneven, yet the walls curve with a grace that feels almost human. You are inside a body of stone, and when the light enters, you feel it not only upon your skin, but within your chest. At the solstice, the beam shifts. At the equinox, it realigns. 4 times a year, without fail, the heavens touch the earth in this chamber. The stones do not move, the stars do. The sun drifts, yet always returns, as though bowing before the temple itself. It is said that Najdra was more than a building. It was a calendar, a clock of seasons, a compass set not to north or south, but to eternity. Each stone was chosen not for strength alone, but for the way it could hold light and shadow and silence. The builders knew, in ways we struggle to imagine, how the sky turned. But the temple was not only for measuring time, it was for dissolving it. The deepening mystery. Who were these people who carved such precision from rock? What hands dragged the stones across the island? What eyes read the stars with such accuracy? Their names are lost, their language gone. No scripture remains, no scroll, no ink upon papyrus. Only the stones themselves, aligned with something greater than memory. Some believe Najdra was a place of worship, where priests stood at dawn and dusk to mark the seasons. Some whisper it was a temple of fertility, where the cycles of sun and earth joined the cycles of birth and decay. Others see it as a place of ceremony, where death itself was honored by the rhythm of returning light. The statues found nearby are faceless, their forms round and timeless. Silent guardians. They do not tell us their purpose. They only remind us that what is faceless can also be eternal. Perhaps the people of Malta did not seek to name their gods, but to walk with them, to stand in stone chambers and let the light speak for them, to listen to the sky rather than write of it. The breath of the cosmos. Step deeper into imagination. It is the morning of the equinox, thousands of years ago. The air smells of salt and stone. A gathering waits outside. Men and women, elders and children, they know what is coming. Slowly, the sun rises. Slowly, the light enters the doorway. And when it strikes the altar, silence falls like a tide. Not a silence of emptiness, but of fullness. A silence that feels alive. It is said that in those moments, the temple itself became more than stone. It became a meeting place between the human span and the eternal span. Each beam of light was a reminder that the cosmos was watching, that the universe was not indifferent, but in communion with the earth. Some whispers tell us the light was not only for marking time, but for renewal. Each season, the temple awakened again, reminding those who gathered that they, too, were part of cycles greater than themselves. Birth, growth, decay, return, each mirrored in the journey of the Sunday. The walls of Najdra held these rhythms, like lungs holding breath. Stones and stars. The stones themselves are weathered, crumbled, veiled with lichen, yet their weight remains, unmoved by thousands of years. They stand not as ruins, but as guardians. Each curve, each opening, holds a story. Each alignment whispers of an intelligence that read not books but skies. Archaeologists trace their hands across these carvings, studying measurements, charting angles. They speak of solar calendars, of astronomical precision. Yet beneath the science lies a silence science cannot measure, the awe of intention. For intention itself is sacred. The builders did not stumble upon alignment, they sought it. They listened to the heavens, and they carved the earth accordingly, to live not against the cosmos, but within it. And so Najdra is not merely a ruin, it is a prayer made solid. A prayer of stone, rising from earth to sky, and returning with each dawn. The holy silence. Walk within it now, in thought. The sunlight has passed, but its memory lingers. Shadows stretch along the altar. The air feels untouched by centuries, as though the last worshipper left only yesterday. You touch the stones, and they feel warm with memory. It is said that within such chambers, silence is not absence but presence. A silence that holds echoes of chants long vanished. A silence that remembers the breath of those who once stood here. A silence aligned, just as the stones, with something greater. In such silence, time itself feels fragile. One moment you stand in the present, the next you stand where ancient feet once stood, beneath the same sun, the same sky. You realize the heavens have not changed, only we have. The stars above are the same eyes that watched the builders. The sun is the same fire. The alignment still holds. And so, Menagdra is not ruined, it is alive. The fade into silence night falls, the stars rise, countless and cold, yet strangely close. The sea glimmers beneath their light, endless and oceanic. The temple sleeps, but even in darkness, it holds alignment. Its stones do not forget, its doorways remain open, waiting for the next dawn. Perhaps it was never built only for seasons, or for ceremonies. Perhaps it was built to remind us that we are part of a greater rhythm, one that continues whether or not we mark it. Whispers tell us that when you stand inside Menagdra, and the light falls just so, you are not only witnessing the universe, you are being witnessed by it. The cosmos sees you, the stars remember you, and when the light fades, when shadows return, you are left with more than memory, you are left with awe. For the stones of Malta did not only hold the earth, they held the stars. And still, they hold them, the city, beneath the dust. It is said that the earth remembers even when we forget. Beneath the dust of ages, beneath the silence of fields and cliffs, lie the traces of a people who once walked here, who built with stone, who prayed beneath the sun and stars, and then, as if by the turning of a great hand, vanished. We begin with an image of silence. The ruins of Malta's temples stand beneath, a sky washed pale by centuries of wind. Their stones are vast, rounded, smoothed, not only by the labor of hands, but by the endless breath of time itself. From above, they appear as spirals, as circles, as curves that recall bodies, wombs, and the celestial pathways of the heavens. Yet now, they lie in quiet, with no smoke rising, no voices, carrying across the ridges. The city is gone, only dust remains. And yet, the dust breathes. The invitation of ruins, walking among the stones, one feels not abandonment, but presence. The walls, though broken, lean as though listening. The altars, though empty, seem waiting. Each stone, lifted and placed by hands long dissolved, still rests as if with intention. It is said that once, a great population thrived here. Men and women who built temples larger than any house, chambers deep enough to cradle silence, and corridors that spiraled inward like the breath of the earth itself. They carved statues with no faces, figures with rounded hips, guardians of fertility and mystery. They lived not as scattered tribes, but as a society organized, deliberate, patient. And then, they were gone. No final record, no farewell, only dust. Bones, pottery, fragments of memory. Archaeologists tell us what remains. Bones unearthed, sometimes arranged in ways that suggest ritual, sometimes scattered like forgotten echoes. Pottery, marked with spirals and waves, their patterns repeating the language of the sea. Carvings of animals, of figures, of symbols whose meaning is half familiar yet half veiled. Each fragment feels close, but unreachable, like a whisper caught in wind. We can hold the pottery, yet not the potter's laughter. We can measure the bones, yet not the heartbeat that once carried them. We can trace the carvings, yet not the prayer they once embodied. Beneath the silence, these fragments call, not to be solved, but to be remembered. Whispers of disappearance. How did a people so rooted in stone dissolve like mist at sunrise? Some say famine, that the soil, once generous, grew thin, leaving hunger in its place. The people, unable to survive, faded as the crops failed. Others speak of disease, of pestilence that came upon them quietly, hollowing their homes, filling their chambers not with song but with absence. Yet there are darker whispers too, whispers of sacrifice, of rituals turning severe, of offerings demanded too often by gods who never answered. And then, other voices tell a gentler tale, that they did not perish, but left willingly, that they gathered their gods, their faceless guardians, and crossed the sea to new lands, that they left the stones behind not as abandonment, but as offering, to remind the earth that they had once been here, to leave behind a map for those who might one day return. Perhaps the truth lies in none of these, or perhaps in all. A society of silence. When one stands in the Hypogeum, beneath layers of earth, one feels their presence most. The chambers spiral inward, alcoves curve like wombs, and the air feels heavy, as if alive. The sleeping lady rests there small, carved timeless, her body rounded, her eyes closed in dream. Was she their goddess, or was she simply memory carved in stone? The people of Malta seem to understand cycles, of life and death, of birth and decay, of sun and moon. Their temples aligned with stars, their chambers echoed with sound, their altars held offerings. Everything they built suggests a society not obsessed with conquest, nor with walls, but with connection to earth, to breath, to silence. And yet, one day, their breath stopped. Beneath the dust, but disappearance is not always absence. The ruins remain, and with them, a presence that cannot be erased. Walk among them at dusk, when the wind moves softly, and the sea glows faint with the last light. The stones do not feel dead, they hum faintly, as if carrying echoes beneath their weight. You can almost hear footsteps in the dust, voices calling across time. Perhaps they have not vanished, but only changed form. Their lives, their rituals, their songs all absorbed into the land itself. It is said that the earth takes back what it loves most. And here, the earth has taken them back, folding their memory into rock and dust, scattering it into sea spray and silence, the fade into silence. And so we leave, slowly, as one leaves a sacred chamber. The ruins do not follow, yet they remain with us. The dust on our shoes, the salt on our lips, the weight in our chest, they remind us that these people are not gone. They are here, in absence. They are here, in memory. Perhaps disappearance is only another form of existence. Perhaps to vanish is to remain in another way. Some voices do not end. They echo when we are ready to listen. And beneath the dust of Malta, a city still breathes. Not in stone, not in bone, but in silence. The silence of those who lived fully. The silence of those who left without farewell. The silence of those who are still here waiting, beneath the dust. The silent guardians. It begins with stone. A pale, weathered block of limestone, standing where time has thinned and softened, yet still holding its shape. Upon it rests a figure wide of hip, rounded of form, monumental in presence yet faceless. The head is gone, not lost to time, but never given. An absence chosen, carved with purpose. She stands in silence, and it is within that silence the story breathes. It is said that in Malta, an island where sea and sky are forever in conversation, the ancient people carved guardians not of warriors, nor of kings, but of faceless, timeless figures. Figures that bore the weight of the sacred, but not the name. Figures that demanded reverence, yet never claimed it. Perhaps you can see her now, not only in stone, but in shadow, standing in the chambers of a temple, her body lit by shafts of dawn, her silence filling the air more deeply than the voices of those who prayed before her. She does not speak, yet her stillness tells us everything, that she is presence itself, unbound by face, unbound by identity. Whispers tell us that these statues were meant to be mothers, their wide hips echoing fertility, their stone bodies carrying the memory of countless births, seasons, and harvests. Others say they were goddesses, embodiments of the island itself, protectors of land and sea. But some believe they were not meant to be neither mother nor goddess, but silence itself, given form. For when the ancients gathered in the dim-lit temples, beneath ceilings carved by hand, it was not always words that shaped their rituals. It was breath, the rhythm of feet on stone, the movement of firelight against walls. And there she stood, faceless and vast, holding space for mystery. Her facelessness is not emptiness, it is invitation, a mirror. Look upon her, and you do not see her features. You see yourself, your ancestors, your fears, your longing for the eternal. Imagine the temple chambers, Menagdra, Ajarkim, Tarxien, where light falls precisely at equinox and solstice, where carved spirals decorate altars, and where these guardians once stood in silence, unmoving. The people would have entered with offerings, bowls, animal bones, vessels of clay. They would have whispered prayers, not to be heard, but to be absorbed by the stone itself. The faceless statues bore witness. They did not answer, nor did they judge, but their presence lingered, shaping the air. Some archaeologists tell us they were fat ladies, symbols of fertility. Others label them idols, remnants of an earth-centered faith. But such words feel too small, too confined. To stand before them is to know they are more than labels, more than theories. They are thresholds between human and divine, between presence and absence. There is something haunting in a face erased. We are drawn to eyes, to expressions, to features that reveal the story of a being. Without them, we are left in suspension. We search, but there is nothing to find. And perhaps that was always the point, to draw the seeker inward, not outward. It is said the ancients believed that the spirit, the essence, could not be contained by features carved in stone. To leave the figure faceless was to leave it infinite, untethered. A face can decay, can be forgotten, can belong to only one, but absence endures, and so she becomes all things: mother, goddess, land, sky, silence. She is the earth beneath our feet, the sea that carves the shores, the air that carries breath. She is presence without boundary. In the dim silence of night, when torches burned low, it is easy to imagine her shadow against the walls. Wide hips, round body, no face. A guardian not of defense, but of mystery. She did not shield with sword or spear, but with silence itself. For silence has a power words cannot hold. Silence is deeper than command, softer than prayer. It stretches beyond time, into the places where memory fades and imagination begins. And so her silence spoke, not in sentences, but in echoes, not in answers, but in questions. Some believe she watched births, the cries of infants filling the chambers, carried into her stone body, absorbed into the eternal. Some believe she oversaw deaths, her presence a bridge between the living and the beyond. Some believe she marked the turning of the seasons, her silence harmonizing with the movement of the stars. Yet her facelessness leaves all these possibilities unresolved. She is the unfinished sentence, the pause between breaths, the guardian of the unsaid. Perhaps she was never meant to be understood. Perhaps understanding was never the purpose. In the end, what she offers is not explanation, but reflection. To stand before her is to be reminded of what we do not know, of what we cannot hold, of what escapes the net of human words. She is not a statue, not an artifact, not a relic. She is presence itself, carved into stone. A reminder that mystery is not to be solved, but lived. Now, as the sea winds sweep across the ruins, as the temples stand in their crumbled dignity, she remains, not whole, not complete, but enduring. A silent guardian, faceless yet eternal. Her silence still lingers in the chambers. Her absence still invites us to listen. And when we do, we find that silence is not empty, but full. Full of memory, full of presence, full of echoes that do not fade. Perhaps that is her gift, to show us that guardianship does not always mean voice, and does not always mean power displayed. Sometimes guardianship is absence, the stillness that holds space for all that cannot be spoken. Perhaps it was never meant to be known who she was. Perhaps she was never meant to be named. For some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and some guardians protect not with words, but with silence. The sea that remembers it begins with water. Not the gentle trickle of a stream, nor the closed circle of a lake, but the endless expanse, the sea, restless and ancient, its breath as old as time itself. Waves break upon the limestone cliffs of Malta, as they have for thousands of years. Salt gathers in the air, carried inland by winds that have seen empires rise and fall. Foam dissolves on the rocks, leaving behind nothing but a trace, a whisper of touch. The sea does not forget. It carries memory in its depths, folded into tides, hidden in currents. And here, around this island carved from stone, the sea has always been a witness. It is said that Malta's story cannot be told without the ocean. The temples of stone, the faceless guardians, the chambers aligned with the stars, all of these rise from land, yet all of them lean toward water. For the sea was the giver and the taker, the pathway and the boundary, the eraser and the keeper. Waves once brought traders with goods wrapped in cloth, their sails full of foreign winds. They brought pilgrims, carrying gods in their minds and offerings in their hands. They brought invaders, whose ships cut the horizon like sharp knives. Yet the sea also took. It swallowed ships, devoured villages, erased footsteps left in the sand. Some whisper that the very people who built the great stone temples, who carved spirals into altars and shaped guardians from limestone, did not vanish into silence, but into water, that they boarded vessels and sailed into the horizon, chasing a promise beyond the blue edge of sight, that their memory traveled not downward into the earth, but outward, across the sea's wide skin. Imagine it. An island full of life, smoke rising from hearths, footsteps echoing in courtyards, voices chanting in chambered halls. Then, silence. The stones remain, but the people are gone. Did famine drive them to the sea? Did faith? Did hope for a new world? Some believe they left willingly, carrying their gods on their ships, carrying their silence with them. Some believe they were claimed by the water itself, storms pulling them beneath the waves, the ocean closing above them like a gate. And so, when we stand before the ruins, we do not only stand on land. We stand on a shoreline of memory, where the earth ends and the sea begins. The ruins of Malta feel like shorelines themselves, thresholds, edges. Each temple is a meeting place between two worlds, stone and star, land and water, silence and song. Their altars hold the breath of rituals long gone, while just beyond their walls the sea continues its chant, unchanged. It is said the ocean does not erase completely. It remembers in fragments. A shard of pottery, buried in silt. A bone, softened by salt. A whisper, folded into the waves. These are the offerings it keeps, the remnants of stories it has chosen not to forget. At night, when the moonlight strikes the water, the sea becomes a mirror. Silver trails spread across its surface, as if guiding invisible ships toward invisible shores. The waves move in rhythm, like the breath of something vast, something eternal. It is then, in the quiet hours when land sleeps, that the sea feels most alive. Some say if you listen closely, you can hear it speak, not in words but in hymns. Hymns older than memory, carried from distant ages, sung back to the island stones. Perhaps the people who vanished did not vanish at all. Perhaps they remain, their essence dissolved in the waves, their stories carried forward in each tide. Perhaps the sea itself has become their temple, vast and unending, its song their prayer. Whispers tell us that to live by the sea is to live with constant remembrance. Its sound never ceases. It fills the air with echoes of all that has been. It does not allow silence, yet its voice is not noise. It is continuity, a rhythm, a pulse. For the sea that touches Malta is the same sea that touched the first builders, the same sea that carried their ships, the same sea that now carries our reflections. It is unchanged, even as centuries fall like sand into its depths. Beneath the silence of the ruins, beneath the dust of the stones, the sea still moves, always moving, always remembering. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and perhaps the sea is such a voice. It does not speak directly. It speaks in rhythm, in foam, in the endless rise and fall of tides. It speaks when moonlight touches its skin, when storms churn its depths, when stillness spreads across its horizon. To hear it is not to understand. To hear it is simply to feel, to sense the weight of time, the persistence of memory, the vastness of presence. And so we close with this image, the sea as witness, eternal and unbroken. The cliffs of Malta bathed in silver, the ruins crumbled yet dignified, the waves moving endlessly against stone. Perhaps disappearance is not loss. Perhaps it is only transformation, the dissolving of one form into another, the carrying of memory from earth into water. The sea has seen it all. The sea remembers, and as long as the waves continue to break against Malta's shores, the story will never truly fade. The dream that does not end. It begins with the night. The sky above Malta is vast and ink-dark, spattered with stars that shine like distant fires, each a quiet witness to centuries of secrets. The island beneath them is a soft shadow, its limestone cliffs and ridges kissed by moonlight, pale and spectral against the deep blue of the Mediterranean. There is no wind yet, only the gentle pulse of silence, a breath held between the world of the living and the memory of what has passed. It is said that Malta is less a place than a dream the earth continues to have. The stones themselves hum softly in the dark, a vibration felt more than heard, a memory of hands that carved, shaped, and arranged them long before history was written. Each temple, each chamber, each spiral of ochre and limestone carries fragments of thought, intention, and devotion, a dream etched in stone that refuses to fade. Walking slowly along the ridges, we are met with the Vgantija temples on Gozo, massive forms that rise like echoes of giants long vanished. The stones, though heavy beyond imagining, do not feel merely physical. They are vessels of thought, resonant with the labor and care of those who lifted them, aligned them, and pressed meaning into their edges. Perhaps permanence was never their goal. Perhaps they sought something quieter, more profound, to become part of a dream that would outlast them, a memory that would pulse through the very earth, through the stones, through the air that now brushes softly against our skin. Each ruin holds a whisper, faint yet persistent. We sense the traces of ceremonies, the careful placement of figurines, the shaping of altars into curves that echo the human body, the womb, the spiral of life and death. The sleeping lady rests still, her curves illuminated by the silver light, her faceless gaze a gentle invitation to imagine, to wonder, to enter without expectation. Some believe that the builders of Malta understood time differently. They measured it not in hours or years, but in cycles of the moon, the stars, the sun, the tides, and the silent breath of the land. They carved the stones to catch light at solstices, to amplify voices in subterranean chambers, to create spaces where spirit and body might merge. The dream they wove is still here, palpable in the hush of the Hypogeum, in the alignment of Mnajdra, in the faceless guardians who seem to watch over everything and nothing at once. We follow their rhythm. The chambers spiral gently downward, walls curving like an embrace, the air heavy with the echo of long-forgotten words. Here, in these quiet corridors, the boundary between waking and dreaming softens. A single breath seems amplified, stretched through the stone, as if the very earth inhales alongside us. Perhaps this was the intent all along, not to create permanence, but to dissolve permanence into continuity, to let the builders become one with the dream, with the land, and with time itself. Outside, the night is thick with silver. The ocean laps quietly at Malta's edges, carrying stories of arrivals and departures, of hands that built and hands that left. Waves break softly against cliffs, leaving white foam that drifts across rocks like transient dust. The sea remembers what the land cannot hold. The land holds what the sea cannot carry. Together, they cradle the dream, each stone a heartbeat, each chamber a pulse of quiet memory. As we move through the ruins, each step is measured, deliberate, reverent. The faceless statues, the spirals on altars, the chambers aligned to stars, all are invitations to enter the dream, to let it enfold us. Perhaps it is not a dream we enter alone, but one that stretches across millennia, touched by the hands and hearts of those who came before, by those who vanished, by those who watched from stone and sea alike. In this dream, there is no urgency, there is no need for answers. Each fragment of pottery, each carved figure, each whisper of wind through limestone is enough. Some voices only echo when we are ready to listen, and here, in the hush of night, the dream speaks in gentle pulses, a vibration beneath the skin, a soft turning of thought, a quiet recognition that the builders are present still, in ways we can sense but not define. Perhaps they never intended to be understood. Perhaps the purpose was simply to leave a trace, a resonance, a soft current that would flow through the island and into those who came later. The temples are not monuments, they are vessels. The Hypogeum is not a tomb, it is a vessel. The stones are not silent, they are singing in a language older than memory, in a rhythm older than time. And so we linger in the moonlight, letting the dream unfold around us. The faceless goddess rests, the spiral of the walls draws us inward, the air hums faintly with echoes of ceremonies long past. The sea moves endlessly, the wind whispers across cliffs, and the stars hold their vigil overhead. To walk among these ruins is not to uncover answers. It is to participate in the dream, to let it fold around us, to breathe with it, to drift gently into the quiet that has always existed between stone and sky, between body and memory. Each chamber, each altar, each curve of limestone is a soft promise. The dream has not ended. It continues, patiently, waiting for those who will enter it and let it carry them into silence. Perhaps it was never meant to be found in full. Perhaps its meaning lies not in understanding, but in presence, in listening, in the quiet surrender to the rhythm of what endures. The stars continue their silent march across the night sky. The sea continues to remember. The wind continues to weave its fingers through cliffs and ruins. And beneath it all, the dream pulses softly, endlessly, a current flowing beneath the stone, the spiral, the faceless gaze, the temple, the sea. To enter Malta is to enter a dream already in progress, one that began long ago, one that does not end, and one that waits for us to fall asleep within it. Here, we leave the stones, the statues, the spirals, and the chambers behind, but the dream remains. It flows beneath our feet, echoes in our breath, hums quietly in our minds. And as sleep approaches, we are part of it, carrying it gently with us into our own night, into the continuum of memory, into the soft, eternal rhythm of the earth's long, unbroken dream.